Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today, welcome back our head of written research, Michael, for our weekly crypto news update. How are you, Michael?
Very well, thank you. Been a bit of rain over here in Asia at the moment, and so I feel like I had to swim to work, but otherwise good.
Yeah, and last week, episode 2 of weekly crypto news, we both had school holidays and dad duties intervened, but we are planning on doing this weekly. And as always, Michael's been pumping out all the great research. I just read that article about Hyperlend over on the platform for all our members. So you got plenty of slides teed up for us again today. But what's your feeling as alts have been really beat up with that last drawdown where Bitcoin has been relatively strong?
Yeah, it's crazy. Just absolute fear in the market, isn't there? For those that have been around for a little while, I'll share my screen. But for those that have been around for a little while, I've never seen sentiment really like this. Bitcoin has been super resilient here, hardly moving at all, like a few percentage here or there, almost stablecoin-esque. But you look on, crypto X, crypto Twitter, and there's just absolute fear and panic in the market right now. And so I do think that we've probably come into a new paradigm. And they always say that these cycles are never quite the same. They're never quite actually going to be identical to what everybody thinks. And I think that maybe the market dynamic has actually changed here, that we live in a Bitcoin world.
Yeah, and that's what we've been saying for a while now. This cycle can mature to the point, because this asset class is so large, that it trades more like the stock market. And that is really what we're seeing. If it's in an uptrend and we get these 10-15% pullbacks on Bitcoin, they're being pretty aggressively bought up. And then altcoins of just people are continuing to sell because they're just watching them bleed out, and people are reshuffling their portfolios into more quality stuff, which is, again, this is what we've been talking about. So I think the sentiment was so bad the other day, you have to think that we've maybe put in that bottom before, even if it's just a decent bounce here. Because there's some really good quality stuff that's completely beat up, but that's simply because of all the dilution that we keep talking about. You have to be in high quality projects and be a bit more nimble.
Yeah, I've been pretty vocal about this, that I know that there's going to be opportunities which I will miss, but I purposely just don't, I'm not a meme coiner. I'm not even really a TA trader. And I know there's a lot of our community who are, and that's why we've got a lot of really talented people who are in that space. But for me, I'm not smart enough to look down, I guess, that high frequency type of in and out, in and out, in and out. And every time I've done it, I just get chopped up. I'm a fundamental investor. And for me, that's why I don't touch meme coins. There is no fundamental. And so I think, there's all these stories that people make huge amounts of money, but for every one, there's thousands of people that just get destroyed. And so I very rarely venture outside of the top sort of 100. And I think there's so many good quality protocols. There's just not need for the obscene amounts of risk that people get themselves into.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how, does token price, even equate to project success anymore, and that type of thing in a couple of these slides. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll keep flicking through. So, obviously Ethereum is the story here. All of the Bitcoin inflow that comes into Bitcoin from the ETF seems to just be staying in Bitcoin. Anyone who sold their Bitcoin to go buy alts has probably already done it. And so none of that Bitcoin inflow seems to be translating. And right now we've got more shorts on ETH than any time in history. So never has there been more people short Ethereum as they are right now.
Yeah, and as a trader, or whenever you look at these types of extremes one way or another, you can see there back in the end of 2020 was exactly when ETH peaked, and there was those longs compared to all the shorts you can see in that chart that goes for about 4 years. And here we are at the point where the ETH BTC ratio is probably at its lowest, and we've got record shorts, and it's probably time to go against the crowd again, like I said before, for at least a pretty decent bounce, if not this being the bottom for ETH.
Yeah, it's very rare that the consensus of the crowd is the path that things take. So people obviously can make their own decisions there, but
and
I
we've
definitely
seen
would not be
BlackRock
loading
and
shorts.
yeah. BlackRock buying and Trump buying, and sentiment's so bad. So yeah, good time to be bullish, at least in the short term.
I think so. Your risk to reward on ETH right now is probably, better than what it was a short period of time ago, at least. Some of the other big news events, and there's actually been quite a lot that's happened in this last week, and individually, some of these things would just be absolutely monsters. But because we live in such a cluttered market right now, so many things happening with Trump, and obviously loving all of the Evil Elite series because it's all really relevant to everything that happens in the crypto world. But the big launch this week was Berachain. So this is just another like EVM L1 which has launched. The launch wasn't exactly as planned. Like the chart is not as pretty as what I'm sure that they were hoping for. And there's been quite a little bit of like FUD around about it, but this has been quite anticipated. This has been a couple of years in the making. I remember seeing, in Singapore at one of the big conferences 3 years ago, the founder with a big bear head on his head, like undoxed on one of the small, tiny little stages talking about Berachain. But they finally launched, but they've got a very like odd tokenomic model where they've split into 3 main tokens. They've got their stable coin, which they call Honey, but then they've got the Bearer token, which is the gas token. And they've got BGT, I believe it is, which is their governance token.
Yeah.
And you have to provide liquidity into their dApps. You get LP tokens. And then by staking your LP token, you earn BGT, the governance token. And then you can vote for which dApps will give you like rewards for providing liquidity on. But the governance token is not transferable fully. So you can sell it, but you can't buy it. So you can't buy influence. You can only earn influence. Anyway, it's caused a little bit of drama. Some people are loving it. Some people are quite bearish on it. But the things that I guess these projects are doing, I guess, to try and
Yeah, I did see a bit of pushback on Twitter about the funds raised and the VCs versus something like Hyperliquid that went entirely community based and whatever. And once again, there's just, to me, the saturation of L1s and L2s, and it's just so hard, and that is really reflected in that price chart when it launched at a pretty big fully diluted valuation. The chart's been down only ever since.
And it's just like, again, I mean, like the other main hype one here that's coming still is Monad, and like these guys have raised an incredible amount of money, and supposedly the tech is actually quite good, where you'll have like an EVM chain that will have Solana plus speeds. But again, the variations in some of these chains, like how many more chains do we need? Have we fixed the blockchain smart contract problems?
Yeah.
But this will be another big one. So like put it on your radar. Like if you're looking to trade, like this is obviously going to launch at some point this year. 10,000 transactions per second type sort of thing, near zero gas fees, 1 second block times. Like these guys have got an infinite amount of funding as well, and that'll be coming soon too.
Cool. Another good one to watch. I know you've spoken about a fair bit.
Yeah, so probably the other main like things that to watch out for, like Ethereum is getting an upgrade with the Pectra upgrade this month. And so I think Ethereum has had a little bit of a tricky time since they introduced the blob model, because you sell block space to the L2s, and then they tried to like tweak that fee market. So they kind of had their own little market where they could bid for gas, and they did it through the blob space. And it kind of made almost it too cheap for some of the L2s, and the L1 really suffered as a result. And we can see that that's happened with price, because the demand for gas wasn't the same from the L2s as what it was from when everyone was trying to trade on the L1.
Yes.
So this will try and fix that and redistribute a little bit and help with some UI upgrades. So let's see. I mean, what comes from Ethereum? There's all the Ethereum ecosystem are like really excited about this, but let's see what it does to the actual chart. So this one is a really interesting one. So we're almost at the point now where, like we were saying before, like how many other main nets do we need? I think we've pretty much enshrined ourselves with, Bitcoin is the gold standard, literally, and we've got probably ETH and Solana as the premier blue chip smart contract platforms.
Yeah.
But I think we're almost starting to get to the point now where we've got blue chip dApps.
Yes.
And Uniswap, I think, is this. So with V4 of Uniswap, developers no longer have to go and create their own, DeFi platform and then create liquidity and try and bring users in to deposit funds so that, people can actually trade. What they can do now is they can actually just build straight on top of Uniswap, and they can hook into the Uniswap liquidity. So this almost enshrines Uniswap forever, which is pretty bullish, I think, for the actual token itself. But now people will literally just build on top of Uniswap, and especially when they've got their own L2 coming.
Yeah, and that can be, like I said, a bit of a leverage play or a beta play on Ethereum as well. If we start to see more activity and prices go up on all these altcoin chains, BNB and everything that Uniswap has integrated, that they're going to be the beneficiary of any appreciation we see in altcoin prices and increase in activity in alts and all that type of thing. And it's also changes, I guess, the tokenomics. If you're launching a new project, and traditionally it's been give big incentives out to encourage liquidity and that kind of thing. But now all the liquidity is already there and easy to plug into. So that's going to change things for new projects as well.
This will probably work like a leveraged ETH play as well, because if ETH moves, you're going to think that this will move more. If it sells off, this will sell off more, but it's almost like a leveraged Ethereum play right now.
Yeah, and interesting with what Trump and that crew are going to do with their World Liberty Finance platform and speculation around it. Are they going to create some sort of DeFi monster themselves, or are they going to plug into Uniswap where the majority of liquidity is? So interesting times ahead on that front too.
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, the main Solana competitor here, which is Jupiter and Radium. Jupiter's kind of like the aggregator, Radium being the DEX. They just had their conference over in Istanbul called Catstanbul.
Again, I've seen cat memes have had a good week or two as well.
It's crazy, just like the world that we live in. But anyway, they've actually just bought Moonshot, and so Moonshot was the platform that was allowing people to get into meme coins just with their credit card. And so when the Trump token took off, Moonshot was the portal where a lot of new users came in. And Jupiter has just bought Moonshot, and I guess that'll bring revenues. And with revenues, they're not going to distribute funds to token holders, but they're going to buy back and burn the Jupe token. And so you got to think that would only be fairly bullish for the price too, where there's real revenues taking tokens out of supply. This is, again, a very blue chip DeFi platform on the Solana ecosystem. So I would expect that this will probably be bullish for Jupiter.
Yeah, and I might even, guys, if you haven't seen that video I did with Jason the other day, that was a cracker video where he gave us a deep dive through the Sol ecosystem to some of the lesser known protocols, and it really is very slick. Like, you got to take your hat off to them. That's what up and coming protocols like Stacks need to do. Now they've kind of got that tech down pat and their narrative. Now they need to make things as user friendly and as slick as a lot of the Solana protocols have. So I'll link that video down below as well for people if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about where this world is going to go with blockchain, I think for those that don't know, Ondo is a DeFi platform that allows you to get exposure to institutional grade assets. And they just had their summit. Well, I think it's today in America or yesterday. When you look at some of the speakers that came here, this was mental. Like how connected they are. You're talking like the chairman of what was he, the House Financial Services Committee chair, and then Sergey from thing, and you get like all of the VCs are all in on this. And I think this goes into the BlackRock, Larry Fink, we're going to tokenize everything type sort of narrative. And I do actually think that real world assets is going to be probably one of these institutionalized use cases of blockchain, and it's something that I'm probably going to pay a lot of attention to. And I know we've spoken about it in the past a lot as well.
Yeah, when I did my top 10 real world asset plays, that's probably 2 years ago or so, they were starting to get a bit of excitement, and I believe this was one of them that we mentioned at the time. But the question was, is it going to go through the traditional means where BlackRock and that are just going to say, here's our copy-paste chain and we're going to put everything on that? Or are they actually going to go via these technologies and softwares that have already been built out, and then does that benefit these tokens and that type of thing? So that's what I'm watching now, because there's definitely a push. Even just in the last few days, you're hearing a new push for tokenizing and putting treasuries on the blockchain and transparency of all the US financial and maybe everywhere government transactions. Definitely a play that's, I think, is interesting for this cycle, next 12 months.
It's one of those things where like good technology always gets commandeered. And so you got to think that it's going to happen. They're going to have some sort of, whether it's an Ethereum or Solana fork of some sort that's completely run by them, and they can just tokenize everything. But the question will be, how interoperable is that with the free blockchain ecosystem? And so we talk about like, layer twos, it will exist on Bitcoin and smart contract functionality there, or the Ethereum ecosystems. Like, who actually starts to care about decentralization? And transparency, I think everyone hand on heart says that they love this space because they like the idea of being able to improve their financial situation. Yeah. But I think ethically we're all here as well. Well, a lot of us are still here because we believe in that, that free internet and that free money. And this is something that I think if you care about these things, well then, centralization of your chain matters. If you don't care about it and you're literally just here to make money, well, that's when then you start fighting things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and, saying that your hyper quick blockchain is the best one, or your super centralized, bankers chain is the best one. Is it that you pretty much only hold that opinion if you don't care about decentralization? And so
there's no way that this kind of stuff's ever going to be fully decentralized because of like the legality around holding assets and securities. So I think you can see a world though where once you've done your KYC, and we have these apps where it's very liquid and easy to trade in and out of property versus currently how hard it is to get exposure to property as an investment class if you're not a big wig. So there's all these improvements we can make and for all this to still be really successful, even though maybe it's still going to be on this blockchain or maybe backed by BlackRock, but it is still going to open up that traditional market, but very different, as you say, to the complete decentralization space.
Big time. And we see in the space, there's still the war going on in Ethereum. So this is the next biggest, L2, which has been launched, Megaeth. So they've been raising, they've got a mainnet. So they will probably have a token soon themselves as well. Again, this is like the saturation of like L2s that exist on Ethereum, but where everyone's trying to tweak the model a little bit to be more user-friendly or more interoperable or faster or like a better UI UX. So for those that are paying attention to this space, Megaeth will have like a narrative behind it, whether or not it's actually needed or whether or not it actually does really, really well. We see some of the L2 tokens have kind of suffered quite a lot lately, but just something to put on your radar that this is one that is just, launching imminently. And so something for everyone to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I've sold all my L2 exposure on Ethereum a while back now. So, yeah, I'll be interested to watch how that one goes. And I think the story and the way that the ETH2 layer 2s have played out is important to watch as these Bitcoin layer 2s come online. And there was a lot that were raising a year or two ago that are planning on launching this year or already have their test nets and that. So watch that space because I still think that if Bitcoin dominance continues, Bitcoin DeFi and Bitcoin layer 2s are going to be the biggest narrative of this cycle. And then with more of them coming online, and then we'll probably see the same as we've seen in ETH where it's oversaturation and there's a couple of dozen of them, and then the token prices all fall 90% because you can't sustain all that economic activity.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So like for those that know the backstory, so I originally started out in the Nuggets news community in 2017, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And I subsequently moved to Asia, and we have quite a large community over here in Asia as well. And you can see as newer people come into the space, they come in for the, the micro cap, or they come in for the new hot meme coin. But as you sort of get calloused a little bit inside the industry, you can just see more and more people become Bitcoiners, because you start to really understand the fundamentals. And I can see it along, like, as much as I'm not really into maximalism, I do think we live in a multi-chain future, but you start to really understand why, Bitcoin is a fundamental part of this industry and why it needs to be a cornerstone of your portfolio.
Fantastic. Well, guys, if you are struggling with getting your portfolio in order, we're still offering free one-on-one for all our signups if you sign up to the research platform. And Michael, we've got our VIP call, guys, which has been a really popular new service for our high net worth clients tonight. So
excited to see what's happening.
People at home, mate?
No, I think we're coming into an interesting part. We'll look to see what happens next month, see if the Fed wants to go into QE at all. That we just need some more liquidity in the market, I think. And so, we'll keep monitoring it and come back next week with some more news.
I just think it's just so bullish what we are seeing with the amount of Bitcoins on exchanges falling and everything else bleeding out while Bitcoin's barely pulled back 10%. And we haven't even got that global liquidity or these strategic reserves through yet. There's no actual buying happening. So there's so much upside this year still, guys. Get your portfolio in order. And we'll speak again next week, Michael. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.